Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this wonderful world. I am so grateful that you have joined me today. Today, we're going to talk about unlocking the secrets to perfect pricing. And I know there's no such thing as perfect, but that was what SEO wanted, so I'm going to leave it there. Today, yes, this is not typical with marketing. However, pricing is something that is critical, and I was hearing a lot of comments and questions about pricing last week. So I decided that seeing as my background is the accounting and the CFO, I do pricing and have done pricing for many, many, many years, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it. I wanted to bring it forward so you can understand a little bit more about what it is, why it's important, and what you need to do to determine your pricing. You have First thing you need to do is figure out what are you selling? Are you selling based on price? Are you selling based on quality? Those are your two biggest factors to determine why and how you are doing what you are doing. And so we are going to look at the pricing based on cost and the pricing with selling on value, or the cost and based on selling on price. Is it necessary to sell based on price? No. It's not. You do not have to compete to be the lowest price unless that is what you want to be known for. If that's what you're expecting, that's what you're wanting, then that's what you go for. But I I love this. I've got a story that's ancient history. You easily could have heard it if you've talked to anybody about value pricing, but there was a gentleman. This company has had this major upheaval, and things are just they've shut everything down because the machines won't work. There's a major problem, and they don't know how to fix it. All their people have tried, and nobody's been able to get it fixed. So they call this guy. He's supposed to be the best in the field, and they tell him what's wrong. He asks a couple of questions, and then he comes in to fix the problem. He does so. He walks in, asks a couple more questions. He tells them where he wants them to take him. He then walks into the room where this machine is housed, and he walks over to a spot. He pulls a hammer out of his pocket and goes, tap. And all of a sudden, everything starts up. It's all working. Everything is perfect. And they said, "Oh my goodness, why didn't we call you earlier?" And he said, "That's the problem most people have. They don't know to call me earlier." He then handed them an invoice for $1 million. And the manager looks at it and he says, $1 million? But all you did was take out a hammer and tap the machine. He said, yeah, that's why the cost for tapping the machine is $1. The cost for knowing where to tap is $999,999. Knowing where to tap, how to tap, what you're doing and how you're doing it, that's what people are willing to pay for. People will come to me because I've got massive experience, particularly in pricing and everything else, but the financial side of me is very, very strong in a lot of different things. And they will come and question, how do we do this, Joy? How do we do that? How do we do something else? And I'm known as the answer lady because I always can come up with the answer, and if I don't have the answer, I know where to get it. So I will always be able to answer the questions. But is it all for free? A lot of times I'll give a lot away. My husband gets upset with me because I give too much away, in his opinion. But I'd rather give it to people and have people come back and or tell somebody else about what I do and how I do it, and them be willing to come and pay the fees that I'm going to charge, because I don't charge the cheapest. I don't charge the highest, but I don't charge the cheapest. I charge a reasonable fee for the value that you're getting. My buddy, Warren Buffett, he says that price is what you pay, and value is what you get. You are getting the value. The value for the gentleman walking in and tapping the machine, they didn't understand initially. It was you just tapped the machine. That was just you took a hammer and tapped it. But nobody had been able to do that with all their mechanical people doing all the work and all the testing. They had not been able to do that one simple tap and get the machine to start running again. So it is the value of what you are selling. It is the value of what you are doing that is going to give everyone the ability to, and the wherewithal, the reasoning for being able to pay you what you are charging. If you are giving them problems and you give them something and that doesn't work, they're not going to pay you the price that you want to pay. Might want to be paid. Just because you feel you are worth that, if you're not providing something that is working and something that is doing what it's supposed to do, then it is not worth it. The value has to be there. And so that's one of the biggest things that everyone has to decide. How are you going to price your products or services? What are you charging? How are you going to charge? And then when you do sit down to do the charging, you need to make sure that you have got all of the costs included. You can't just have this piece and that piece. When I worked for Chevrolet many years ago, I tell you how long ago it was because at that time I did the pricing for the Corvette. And at that time, the Corvette was selling for approximately $30,000. That is a long time ago. It was back in the 70s. And the cost of the Corvette, I did a cost analysis and came up with the actual cost of each Corvette that they produced was about $65,000. Yet they're selling it for 30. And but the reason they did that is because they said that the husband comes into the dealership. He comes in and looks at the Corvette. He brings the family with him. The wife and the kids look at the other cars. They will buy the family car and he will look at the Corvette. He may eventually buy one, but they will buy today. They're going to buy, at that time it was the Caprice, which was their B model. And so that's what they would do, is say, okay, we are going to spread the cost of keeping the Corvette in prime condition and making every change to it so that we can keep drawing that in. We can keep drawing those people in to look at the Corvettes. They're not gonna buy the Corvette today, but they're going to look at it. So it became an advertising cost for all of the other everything and everything, back then, that was when the Vega was out there, and the Vega, it had a major cancer problem. Yeah, I owned one, and the cancer hit the running boards, and, you lost the Vega, and you lost the frame. You didn't lose the frame, you lost the skin to the frame. But it was a problem. But all everybody shared in the cost. Every car line shared in the cost of keeping that Corvette up to its prime condition, so that they kept drawing in the whole family. The father that was looking at that Corvette, and the rest of the family that was buying the family vehicle. And so that's what you need to look at. You've got to make sure that you covered all of your costs. What is there? What's included in the cost? You've got to look at everything. You've got all your materials, you've got your labor, you've got your overhead, and then you've got all of the advertising and everything that it takes to bring that product to market or bring your service to market. So you need to know what is going on, why it's happening, how it's happening, where it's happening, and what's going on. So it is not just the actual physical cost of the product or the service, is the service. A lot of people think, oh, well, it's just, I only have to pay Joe $50 an hour. And therefore, if I charge $70 an hour, I'm going to make money. But if Joe is making $50 an hour, what about the payroll taxes? You have got to pay the FICA, the Medicare and the Social Security tax, that's FICA. You have got to pay the unemployment taxes. You have got to pay the workers' comp. You have got to pay for all the other insurances and all the benefits. So if he's making $50 an hour just with his salary, and I say $50 an hour because it's a nice, easy number to work with, but if he's making $50 an hour, you have got another minimum 15% on top of that for the taxes and insurance. And you start adding then the benefits and anything else that that employee is given, plus any marketing costs for marketing the service, any cost for keeping Joe employed because he may not be working 24/7. He may not be billing 24/7 all of his time. He may work 8 hours a day, but is only able to bill for 6 hours a day. So you've got to make sure you have got all of your costs included. And the one that most people like to forget is the profit for the company. The company has to make money because if the company is not profitable, the company cannot stay in business. So you've got to make sure you've got all of those pieces included when you are looking at what your cost is, so that you can then make sure that you have an adequate coverage for your pricing. Another thing that you need to think about and to look at is, what's the psychology? When we stop and think about it, what's the difference between a price of $9.99 or a price of $10? $9.99 sounds better, and we're more acceptable to that than $10 because $10 is 10's a bigger number, and it's a penny different, but we don't see the penny difference. We see the 9 versus the 10, and so it's a whole dollar different. And when you're on the internet, most of the numbers will end in a 7. In stores, they'll a lot of times end in a 9. But that is the psychology, and that is the way people are buying. People will buy something. If it goes to $10, it could be the breaking point. But that $9.99, even though that basically is $10, people say, "Oh, that's okay. That's not as expensive. It's not as expensive as this $10 item over here. So I can afford this." It is pure psychology. It is just the brain's thinking. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it doesn't make any difference if you agree with what I'm saying or not. It is the reality. The consumer thinks this way, and so you need to be thinking that way also. And you also need to look at how much give is there in your pricing? Can you charge $1 more? Can you charge $10 more? Can you charge $100 more? And so on. And the only way to determine that is to test it. See what works. You do your testing. You put something out there and sell it at $10, and you put something else out there and sell it at $9.95. And they're basically the same products, but which one sells better? Could it be the colors? Could it be the sizes? Yes, it could. But the single factor that we are changing is the price. We're not going to change the colors. We're going to leave the colors the same. We're going to do the sizes the same. And we are just going to be testing and checking on that pricing to determine which one sells better, which one sells more, which one sells faster. And a lot of times you can sell something for $1 more and it'll go just as fast as it did for $1 less or whatever remember, I use easy numbers. I'm not looking at specific numbers. If you're charging $1,000 for your service, $1,001 is no different than $1,000. So that's not the example, that's not what we want to be looking at. You want to be looking at something that is going to have a significant impact on your buyer and what they are willing to do and what they're willing to buy and what they're willing to endure. Endure in the pricing and the levels and the changes that you are doing. A lot of companies will offer tiered pricing, which will then make the object, the item, or the service more affordable to a bigger audience. You're not going to offer a tiered pricing on the Corvette. Corvettes never have had tiered pricing, and they never will, because that is a sport vehicle that is a high-end sports vehicle. That is not going to be something that you are going to have a high, medium, and low for that particular product. You are only having the high. So there will never be a tiered pricing there. But that doesn't mean that your services, you couldn't offer something that you come in at this level and you get A and B, and when you come in at the next level, you get A, B, C, and D, and when you come in at the top level, you get A through J. You get everything from start to finish, and that's what you need to be looking at and thinking about. okay, how can I work with this and how can I make more sales? You want to find where your sales are, who's buying, why are they buying? That's the critical piece. Why are they buying? And figure out, is there something that I can do to make this better for them? Yeah, there could be something small that you add. You just offer something as a little extra piece. That may not cost you anything or may cost you a very nominal amount to add in, but it makes a difference to the prospect, to your buyer. And that's where we need to be, and that's where we want to be, what we want to be looking at. And so we need to understand that pricing is going to be changing constantly. It's never going to stay the same. You could offer the same price for years and years, but I have not seen deflation in many, many years. We are experiencing extremely high inflation again, and therefore you have got to be ready to adjust your pricing or adjust your offer if you are offering your market won't pay the price that you need to pay. You need them to pay to cover all your costs. You need to look at it and determine, what can I remove and what cost can I save so that I can give this to the market at a price that they're willing to pay. You need to be able to look at, analyze, and adjust your pricing on a minute by minute basis. And that is something that too many businesses, they're afraid to do it because too many people are afraid of the numbers. The numbers, they're just numbers. They're not going to hurt you. They're not going to do anything. They're just numbers. You've got to look at, what is your cost? What are you selling it for? What is your profit margin? Am I making money? Am I not making money? Am I making enough to keep the doors open? Am I making enough to keep me wanting to work here? Keep doing this? Because if you're not willing to keep doing it, there's no reason doing anything. There's no reason to sell anything. So you have to be making enough profit for the business and for yourself. Excuse me. You need to make sure that everything is covered and that you've got a family. Is your family on board with what you are doing? Are you able to take enough time and spend it with the family? If you can't, you want to look at, can we increase the price? And what do we have to do to be able to make that increase? So everything that you are doing, you need to be able to look at it and say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what the cost is. And if I make this change, this is how much change it is going to make in the price of the product, the cost of the product. And will the market handle that increase or decrease? How are they going to deal with that? How are they going to accept it? And you, you look at, go into any grocery store. We used to buy ice cream, one of my favorite treats. Ice cream. They were in half-gallon containers. 64 ounces is a half gallon. What are the container sizes now? They're 48 ounces. The price is just about the same, but they've reduced the quantity of ice cream in each container. Containers look the same, but they're a little bit smaller. They're a few ounces smaller. And they'll change the shapes and the colors to be able to make it look like it did before. And they'll do it, make the changes relatively slowly. They don't do it real quick. make the change, and all of a sudden you realize that. Most people did not even notice the fact that they were shrinking the size of many products that we buy in the grocery store so that they could maintain the price but increase their profit. Because grocery stores have very, very, very low margins. They are making pennies on each item that they are selling. So it makes a big difference for a grocery store to be able to cut that price, but still cut the price of the product, but still have the customer buying it and not have to increase the price just because the price went up on the goods that make the item that they're selling. So you want to be able to think of the same things so that your business can do the very same things that the grocery stores are doing, that the food suppliers are doing, that all the other businesses that are out there are doing. It's critical. You need to know where you are at, why you are there, and how you are there. It is definitely going to make a difference, and it is totally up to you. You can compete based on price, or you can compete based on value. I prefer to base on value because price, there is never a way to win unless you are guaranteeing that you're going to be the absolute lowest. And one of the things that the dollar stores, the 99-cent stores and the dollar stores, Dollar Tree, all of a sudden this last year had to increase. Their items are no longer $1. They're $1.25 because they weren't making the kind of returns they needed to make. And they were closing down Dollar Trees because they weren't making money. So you need to make sure that you're looking at your pricing the same way the Dollar Tree did and have your price be enough to satisfy you, to satisfy your family, to satisfy your investors if you have any. And the investors could be just your family, could be your spouse and your children, or aunts and uncles, or whatever, whomever else could be part of your business. But everyone has to understand what is going on, why it's happening, and what the outcomes are going to be. So think about your pricing. Think about what all the costs are, everything that's included in the picture, and then make the decisions as to what you are going to charge, how you're going to charge it, and most importantly, then, how you're going to sell it. Are you going to sell the value? And if you're selling the value, you have to be able to explain that value to the nth degree. You want to be able to explain as much of that as you can so that people will understand what they are paying for. Because you don't want them just to come in and pay a price. You don't want them to come in and see the price of a Rolls Royce for Chevy Vega. And that just, I would have exploded if I'd had to go in and pay the huge price of a Rolls Royce for the little Chevy Vega. My first Chevy Vega that I bought was the total price out the door was $2,008. And I would not be expecting to pay anything what you would for a Rolls Royce. So you need to be able to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how are you selling it. They don't sell the Rolls Royce the same way that they sold the Vegas. And I talk about the Vega because that was my very first car. So, hey, it's been a long time, but it's still understandable. But do I own a Rolls Royce now? No. I probably never would. But that's me. You might, and you might want to. And that is you. And you need to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. So, with that, make your decisions, go with things, and make it happen. Make it good and make it profitable. So, if nobody has told you yet today that they love you, let me be the first. I love you because you are you. And that is so very, very special. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing with us. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And keep on coming back. I'll see you tomorrow.